Well, shocking video obtained by the New York Post of a robbery in broad daylight on the streets of New York City on Tuesday. Masked men in all black riding up to diners at a Queens cafe, holding them at gunpoint before riding off with jewelry and watches. That, according to multiple reports. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. The Post reporting this happened across the street from the office of New York City Council member Tiffany Caban. In February, Caban spoke out against plainclothes police units in her district. Well, sanctuary city policy is now coming back to haunt Democrat officials as governors from both Texas and Arizona use that as justification to bus over 7,000 migrants into New York and Washington, D.C. The latest bus is full of migrants arriving in New York from Texas this morning. Let's bring in Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich, who is also a Republican Senate candidate. Mr. Attorney General, great to have you. I want to put these numbers on the board so everybody knows what we're talking about here. New York City, over 900 migrants on about 15 buses. D.C., 7,000 plus migrants on 175 buses. And look at that number there, 2,242,000. That's the number of encounters since President Biden has been in office at the southern border. Can you imagine 2 million people being sent to New York and being sent to D.C.? So the people of D.C. and New York, Mr. Attorney General, do not care what happens in Texas and Arizona, but they sure care what happens in New York and D.C.
Well, thank you for having me on. And for full disclosure, the primary's over, so I'm no longer a candidate for the U.S. Senate, but I am an attorney general of our state who's been fighting the lawlessness of the Biden administration from day one. And so these leftist mayors basically invited this crisis. They encouraged and they empowered Joe Biden to basically eradicate the southern border. And as a result, we're seeing these record amount of people not only cross our southern border illegally, but a record amount of drugs flooding into our country. As I've been saying for more than a year, every state, every city now is a border state or a border city. And when you put it in perspective, when you talk about millions of people, thousands of pounds of fentanyl coming into our country, and New York City and D.C. are complaining about a few thousand people, it just shows you that how hypocritical the left are, where they want to impose these policies on red states like Arizona and Texas, but when they just get a little bit of it, then all of a sudden they complain and bellyache.
Here's what New York Mayor Eric Adams, then he was not the mayor, in 2019 said, in quoting here, "Make no mistake, New York City will always stand up to real Donald Trump and call out his cynical plots to divide our country. To anyone in the world fleeing hatred and oppression, the ultimate city of immigrants wants you to remember you are always welcome here." And now he's mayor and he wants him to go home.
Yeah, once again, the hypocrisy of the left is on full display. And so they invited this crisis. They enabled this crisis by decriminalizing and incentivizing legal immigration. And now they're complaining about it when they're getting just a little taste of it, just a cracker, so to speak, of it. And the reality is that I keep trying to emphasize, just this past week, enough fentanyl was seized at our southern border to kill the entire population of Connecticut. So this is not only dangerous, we're paying a cost in lives and money as a result of the failure of the Biden administration. So D.C. mayor, New York mayor, call your buddy Joe Biden and tell him to secure the border.
We just had a father on who lost his son to fentanyl 3 years ago, and he said his solution would be get rid of the 87,000 IRS agents and hire 87,000 Border Patrol agents to man that border to keep that fentanyl from coming across. I can give you 10 seconds. I want to know, because McAllen, Texas, at one point was seeing literally 1,000 people a day. I've got 10 seconds for you left, and they just sucked it up.
The system's overwhelmed. It's not just about Border Patrol agents. The federal government has to start prosecuting people for illegal entry and re-entry and stop incentivizing and monetizing people breaking the law.